like that you don't deserve to be in these spaces. You don't deserve to be the chair of a fancy gala. You don't deserve to be all of these things because of that background story. No, you deserve full stop, right? No matter what your background is. So my view is that talent is evenly distributed across all races and ethnicities, but opportunity is not, right? So access is what determines who gets funded, who gets hired, and who gets to stay in the room long enough to influence outcomes. And so when you change access, you change trajectories. Be clear about your value, right? And your readiness. So relationships absolutely can open doors, but it's preparation that keeps you there. He passed away suddenly a few days after our official launch, which was on Super Bowl Sunday in 2013. And I'm gonna tell you, some days I did not move forward gracefully. And I just focused on my responsibilities, the work that I believed in, and vision again became an anchor. And when everything else felt uncertain, knowing my purpose is what gave me direction.
This is the Commercial Builders Network, where trust is restored, power is reclaimed, and legacy is built. Let's get to work. Hello, beautiful people, and welcome to another episode of the Commercial Builders Network. My name is TaNeshia Reed, and I'm your host. And today we have the beautiful and the amazing Taneshia Laird. She is the Executive Director of Projects, REAP, and she's my twin. How are you doing today?
I am so good, twin. Thank you so much for having me. It's always a party when there are two Taneshas.
Yes. Look, you give Tanisha's a good name, a good rep. Can you please tell the people who you are and what are you known for?
So, my name is Taneshia Nash Laird, and I am the executive director of Project REAP. I also am an associate professor, actually, at Berklee College of Music, and I have my own consultancy called Thrive Tide Partners. And so, collectively, what I'm really known for is a person who is focused on building pathways for people in the space of culture, capital, and community. And I do that work with a whole lot of enthusiasm and love.
Awesome, awesome. So you are a cultural leader, not only in business, but in entertainment, right? So I just want you to dive into like what sparked your vision in business and gave you this passion.
So, like you said, I actually came to this work through Culture First. I've always been deeply involved in arts, music, storytelling. But what I started to see was how fragile cultural spaces were when the economics underneath them weren't secure. So that led me to ask deeper questions about ownership, capital, decision making. And once I understood that business and real estate and all of these spaces are often the infrastructure behind whether communities thrive or disappear. I knew that's where I needed to focus my energy.
I want to dive back into I'm gonna dive into your history a little bit. Um, tell me about like little Tanisha. Where did she come from? Like, what was the spirit of her as a child and that dynamic of growing up?
Oh, wow. That is a question. So I am the daughter of LMA Nash, who came to New York with a one-way ticket on Greyhound to be the help in Scarsdale, leaving behind a family that had been a sharecropping family that worked for the mayor of Hickory, North Carolina. But my mom came to New York with a dream. And I feel like every day I am carrying that dream forward. Little Tanisha was focused on public television. You know, back then we didn't have all these channels. We had basic and PBS. And for me, that was Sesame Street, Electric Company. So I'm dating myself. But I dreamt of that world that I saw on the screen. I also saw orchestras and museums and classic Black plays like A Raisin in the Sun and all of that. And I knew I wanted to be a part of that. So little Tanisha was involved in theater, dance. I was in every high school musical and play. I danced. I was a scholarship student at Purchase College. They had something at the time called the Westchester Arts Program, and I auditioned for all the things. I got in for dance, so I was in a pre-professional dance program. But even before that, that was when I was in high school. When I was 12, I remember tagging along with a friend to audition for what was a relatively new company called Dance Theater of Harlem for training. And she didn't get in, but I did. But my mom did not want me going to Harlem. So that's why this was the early 80s. So this is drug era. But I was somebody who always dreamt. And sometimes I stop and I think like, wow, I really live my dream. Like the position I had before this, 2 roles before this, I was the CEO of Newark Symphony Hall in Newark, New Jersey. And when I
Wow.
was growing up in New York, the commercials on the radio station were live from Newark Symphony Hall. So all of those things are what make me me today. I know that I didn't get here um, without a lot of struggle and sacrifice, whether it was for my mom or anybody that I ever came a part of, but I was brought through, and I know that but for the people identifying and seeing my talent, I would not have gotten to the place that I am today. Now, I'm skipping over a whole bunch of stuff, including the time that I was dancing at hip hop clubs, had my own little cable show while I
Oh.
was in, while I was in college called New York Rap. But that's probably for another podcast. But
Another
those
podcast.
are all the things that make me me.
Awesome. How do those personal life challenges through the little girl who had big dreams to the story of your mom just traveling to see her dream, how does that help you lead today?
That's such a great question. I think it's about continuing to dream. I mean, one of the things that I think that we don't do enough of is to dream and to dream big. I remember when I moved to Trenton, New Jersey, for a job. I was the head of economic development for that municipality, and meeting a lot of the children there who had never gone beyond the borders of Trenton. I moved to Trenton from Princeton, New Jersey, which is the Ivy League town, but a lot of them had never experienced anything out of the city. And I remember supporting my neighbors who created a program to get them literally on the water to learn how to do rowing, because my neighbors were Olympic rowers who had moved
Wow.
to the community. And so for me, that's just one example of giving people a way to not only dream, but to achieve their dreams. For me, like I said, it was watching all the arts and cultural things on television. If you can't see it though, you can't dream it. And so a lot of what I seek to do is to let people know that you can dream. And then the dream is the first step. It's about achieving.
Awesome. So what was the turning point where you realized what all that you do is bigger than you and that there's need for a true impact?
Um, I think the moment in terms of my career path was when I saw incredibly capable people consistently excluded, and not because they lacked talent, but because they lacked access. And that's when it stopped being about my own career and about becoming um, and building pathways for others. And that's really what has been the focus of my career for the past 2 decades. I realized that if I could help create access at scale, that impact would be far bigger than anything that I could do individually.
So you've carried big vision, but you've also have endured some really deep challenges like the loss of your late husband. What kept you moving forward and pushing and thriving in the midst of all of that?
Yeah, so we had just developed, speaking of dreams, our our dream business. I first started dating my husband when I was in college in my 20s, and we dreamt about one day owning our own big entertainment venue. And we did. We opened Mist Harlem on 116th Street. All the famous people would just kind of sit there, and every reality show actually used us, from Love and Hip Hop and SWV show. And you're right, he passed away suddenly. We had a year of soft launch, and he passed away suddenly a few days after our official launch, which was on Super Bowl Sunday in 2013. And I'm gonna tell you, some days I did not move forward gracefully. I just moved. I focused on what still needed me. My children, we have very young children. Um, we didn't have our first child until 14 years in our marriage. So I had a 2-year-old and I had a 6-year-old. Um,
Mhm.
and I just focused on my responsibilities, the work that I believed in, and vision again became an anchor. And when everything else felt uncertain, knowing my purpose is what gave me direction.
So for someone who has feel like they've been knocked off course and life, because life is life, and for a lot of people right now, and I've been one of them. What advice do you have to get them to keep going, to keep thriving in the midst of challenges?
First of all, is to start small. You don't need a master plan when you're overwhelmed. You need just the next step. And so momentum, I think, comes from action, not clarity. And I know that sounds counterintuitive, but trust me, after that first few steps, the clarity just follows the movement. So again, don't try to, it's the advice I give my kids all the time. Don't try to eat an elephant. How do you eat an elephant? One
Right.
bite at a time, right?
Mhm.
It's about just putting that one step in front of the other.
How do you go about building your team and being able to balance everything that you're doing at once?
So I like to think that I build teams intentionally and with a long view. I will tell you, the first team member that I hired at Project Reap was actually the assistant that I had at my last job. I asked, are you interested in taking this journey with me? And she said, absolutely. So whether it's Project Reap or any other initiatives that I'm doing, I look at for people who understand that this is ecosystem building work, not a short term project. Skills absolutely matter, but alignment matters more. My assistant Christine often would be concerned that she didn't know perfectly how to do something, but if she understood the purpose, we can work through how to do it technically. So, especially when you're working across industries like I do, like real estate, and we're going to talk about the sports aspect of that real estate and education. Again, it's about alignment when I'm building the team.
Awesome. So actually, we're going to shift into that right now with Project Reef and 3P. Can you kind of explain, like, even in kind of not answering the same question, but in the aspect of how do you teach them about building their teams and your programs that you have with Project Reef?
So first I want to talk about Project Reap. So thank you for the question. So Project Reap, to contextualize this, you need to understand what it is and why it's important. So, Project Reap is a 16-week intensive designed to prepare professionals to compete and lead in commercial real estate, right? So, we combine technical training and mentorship from senior industry leaders and real access to networks because, again, like most industries, it's not just what you know, it's who you know. So since 1988, more than 2,000 alumni, predominantly alumni of color, have completed the program, and many of them now hold decision-making roles across development, finance, and ownership. And some of them are even entrepreneurs. I know you had one of my favorites on the podcast before. And so what we teach them about, it's the same thing, right? Giving them the understanding that what matters most when you're choosing your collaborators are integrity, curiosity and follow through. And I value people who listen well, who aren't defensive, and who are comfortable being both leaders and learners. I'm consistently in growth mindset. So I am always learning. And frankly, for me, respect for community is, and the communities that we serve is also a non-negotiable. So that's what I do. And if you're asking about advice, and I think you were asking about advice for
Yes.
entrepreneurs,
Mhm.
right? Struggling to find those trustworthy partners. I think trust is built through actions, and not titles, and that you should start small and just observe how people show up under pressure, and don't ignore red flags just because someone looks impressive on paper.
Mm, that's good. Yeah, it's a lot of men that look good on paper that once you dated them, you're good.
And dating, similar to business, right?
To business,
Mhm.
yes. Not just their resume, but what is the spirit that you feel, and go with your gut, 'cause a lot of times it tell you exactly what you need to know.
Absolutely.
Um, so also, do you mind going into 3P and explaining what that is, that program?
So yes, so 3P stands for Pro Players Property. And through that, we're preparing both current and former professional athletes for long-term success in commercial real estate. So again, it's just like what I now describe as our legacy program. We don't prescribe a particular path. They might decide to go in corporate real estate, or they might decide to be entrepreneurs. But we also, as part of the development of the program, we built a national steering committee that not only includes some commercial real estate experts, including some valued board members, my current board chair and my future board chair. So shout out to Mike Kercheval and Erica Nicole Harris, who's the incoming chair. We also have sponsor, Jono Lapat, who works for SRS Real Estate Partners, which was founded by Roger Staubach, who's a very famous Dallas Cowboy. We also have David Mosley, who is another Dallas Cowboys business partner, Emmett Smith. He's Emmett Smith's business partner and CEO of his company. And then we have a couple friends of mine, former NFL players and NBA players. They're veterans. Steve Jordan, who I've probably known over 30 years, and George Lynch, who I used to watch ball as a season ticket holder to the Sixers. So they are our steering committee, and the goal is, again, to help athletes translate the discipline that they already have. Most of these players have been playing their sport since they were little kids, and the visibility that they have and the capital that they have into ownership, development, and sustainable wealth beyond their playing careers. And I'm super excited about the launch of that program in 2026. And just yesterday got an email from yet another former NBA player that is looking forward to coming into the program.
Awesome, awesome. Is there any way that, like, other companies can partner with any of these initiatives, and what does that look like?
Absolutely. So you go on our website, you fill out at projectreap.org. So that's projectreap.org. You fill out a form there and we talk to you. We have sponsors and what we call our partners nationally and also in our local markets. We're in 10 local markets across the country. So, for example, in Atlanta, we have a valued partner in an executive search firm called Pauline Search Partners. So, some people who are local decide to really focus their energies in that market. And partnership looks like a couple of things, a few things actually. You get brand visibility, you get thought leadership opportunities, you get to actually present to our academy, and you get talent pipeline and development. Some of these companies that are partnering with us specifically are doing so because they want to recruit from the academy, and we love that. So there's all different ways that you can partner, and I encourage anyone to reach out to me if you're interested in that.
Awesome. So I know that the Academy has a deadline coming up for registration for the next cohort. What do you how do you see, and what's the date of that again?
So for the Spring 2026 Academy, the deadline to apply is January 31st. If you missed that deadline, there's going to be another one probably in May for the Fall Academy, but that is our very next deadline.
So, how do you see this program changing the landscape of the industry from people that look like us and other minorities?
So it already has. As I said, we have people that have come through this program that are in very significant decision making roles. For instance, the person that is in charge of all new store development for Starbucks, Angel Robinson Gaylord, that is a Black woman who is a Project REAP alum. The person who is in charge of global sustainability for all of Amazon is London Kemp Boykin, and about 75% of their North American real estate is London Kemp Boykin. She is a Project REAP alum, and she will also tell you a Spelman alum. She's a Spelman.
Okay.
That's right. And so we have so many people. I'm meeting with him this afternoon. How could I forget? My board treasurer, Khalid Rashid. He's out in LA, but he also is a partner at Clarion Partners. They're asset managers. They are putting in significant equity in major developments, again, across the country. So we have actually Project REAP. For some people who are outside of commercial real estate, I say we're the best kept secret for how we're helping change the sector. I don't think our work is done. I think it's important that we continue to do this work. We have a number of alum who are also now seeking to mentor others because it's about each one, teach one. That is something that we're also doing. The other way, and you didn't ask this, but I'm going to tell you anyway, the other way that we're helping sort of having impact on community is there are new programs that we have for alums like board builders, where we're helping them get on nonprofit boards, but also civic boards and commissions. Every city, state have important decision-making commissions. So if you're in an industry, for instance, like insurance, it is regulated on a state basis, and there is a board that governs that state agency, and that board is appointed by the governor. And so we are in every market that we're in, we are establishing relationships with the municipalities, with the gubernatorial administrations, so that our alum, our esteemed alums' resumes are in front of them so that they can be looked at for appointments. I think it's not only great civic service in New Jersey. I was appointed to the New Jersey Urban Enterprise Zone Authority Board, which helped make funding decisions for economic development across more than 30 municipalities. Here in Massachusetts, Governor Healy appointed me to the Cultural Policy Development Advisory Council. And a lot of that is where power is in those rooms. And I want our alumni to get into those rooms.
Yeah, I was actually that was kind of my next question, which is like, with this initiative, why do you think it's so important, and what kind of impact could it have being on these boards, especially for a person that's like, I have never thought about politics, I don't want no parts of it, but what is the difference that makes?
Well, this is not politics. This is governance, right? So that's
Okay.
two different things, right?
Okay.
So politics is running for office. Governance is making sure that it is run efficiently and for the benefit of the community. That's the space that we're supporting people. We're not getting into politics,
Okay.
but we are helping them. And, these are important decisions, things that, again, I did not become aware of until I was a city official. And as the as the director of economic development, I was looking to steward projects through the planning board, through the zoning board, presenting to city council. But it's really those boards where they're public members. They're people who are appointed often by either the executive leaders, so either the mayor or the legislators. That's where the power is. I will tell you, I remember being on a panel. I'm not going to totally identify. It was a lot of famous people. It was a day-long summit, and they were talking about how we needed special allocations for us. And when I say us, I mean Black and brown folks. And it was so frustrating to me because I said, that money exists. We need to be in the room to make those decisions. And I said, at one point, very frustrated. While we're talking about this here, there is a group of white men sitting in a room deciding how they're going to divide things up. We need to make sure that we're in those rooms.
So you've helped people and businesses make connections that may have not otherwise happened. Why is it that creating access is such a core part of your mission?
Wow, that's such a great question. So, my view is that talent is evenly distributed across all races, right, and ethnicities, but opportunity is not. Right?
Mm.
So access is what determines who gets funded, who gets hired, and who gets to stay in the room long enough to influence outcomes. And so when you change access, you change trajectories. And so that's why I am focused on creating access.
Awesome. So, with your experience, what is one thing that you feel like that minority businesses need to do or assess differently to create bigger opportunities for their businesses?
I think be clear about your value, right? And your readiness. So relationships absolutely can open doors, but it's preparation that keeps you there. And that's sort of what we talk about at Project Reap as well. We're creating the access, but the reason that we have the academy component, the education component, is to make them prepared to take up space in those rooms.
You have a unique perspective with Project Reap. But outside of your initiative, have you seen any major differences when it comes to diversity in the space of commercial real estate?
I think part of one of the challenges here is that that is kind of my worldview in general too, that it is absolutely about access. And it's also about being comfortable with this idea of taking up space. So I'll give you an example. When we were looking to move to Massachusetts, I was really concerned. It has a particular, especially the greater Boston area, has this reputation that it is a place that can be hostile to Black folks, including the neighborhood that I live in is 2% African American. I think because my children have been in so many spaces that to other people are considered rare air. My children are teenagers. They navigate this space in a way that they might not have if they were here and had internalized that message that this space was not for them. And so a lot of what I am constantly seeking to say to people, and even if you go on the REAP website and you look at my what I call my commencement speech for my spring academy, it was my first time doing the academy. I say step into your power. And so a lot of what I am constantly preaching is that you deserve to be in this space. There is nothing inherently different about you. In my view, there was nothing inherently different about the fact that I grew up impoverished. My mom cleaned houses. She took care of babies and the elderly, frankly, until the day she died, too young. But I knew that she was doing this so that I would have opportunity. Other people could say that background story could make me the other side of the tracks, right? Like that you don't deserve to be in these spaces. You don't deserve to be the chair of a fancy gala, which I have been. You don't deserve to be all of these things because of that background story. No, you deserve full stop, right? No matter what your background is. And it's nothing that someone who has a more affluent background or might be a more desirable ethnicity, now that we're talking about immigration and those sort of topics and the national conversation, there's nothing more better about anybody. Like you deserve full stop. And so if we're talking about commercial real estate, again, it's like any industry, commercial real estate, entertainment, it really is about access to the room, access to the space. And it's about getting in there and being prepared to have a conversation and knowing how to have a conversation in those spaces. And that is what I want folks to think about other than whether they deserve. You do.
I love it. And especially with our name, our mother added a little sprinkle of flavor with the capital N.
Mhm.
But for me, like even I had to go back for between my name and if I was okay for me to actually use it to walk into rooms. And you make us so proud because you just you're very affluent, you're very poised, and you have the connections and how even walking through that, and I know this conversation is really personal to me because it's been kind of things where I didn't even want to be the face of my company at one point, and this black man told me, "I don't know what makes you think you don't deserve the right to be the face of your own company, but you do."
You know, Absolutely, you do. And I'm gonna put it right back to you. You make Tanisha's look good. I'm proud to be in company with you. I love the little capital N, giving a little flavor. I will tell you the best story, and it was a story that I had to sit with and almost made me cry, is that I know someone with a similar name. Her name is TaNeshia, and she had said that she said to me once, I did not want to use my full name. I thought that that was a barrier, but that you and Tahisha Way is now the former lieutenant governor of New Jersey. At the time, she was the Secretary of State. She said, you too make me feel confident in using my full name. Um,
Mhm.
I did give my children one of those names. I have an Imani for Sarah, and I have a Naima May, and they walk in very proudly. And in my mind, they make all the Imanis and Naimas look good, right?
I love it.
So, yeah, I think it's a shame that there still is. By the way, you do know that there are Tanishas who are not our race, right? Like there are blonde Tanishas now. And I'm convinced it's because their moms. It's no longer just a black name. I'll just say that.
Okay.
But it is a shame that there still are things out there that are very real barriers. Let's be clear. It's still a barrier. There are still people. There was somebody on TikTok who said that her boss told her not to select people with ethnic names for interviews, which is totally illegal. So that is still out there. That does not mean though that you do not bring your full self into
Absolutely.
the space.
Awesome. So with a career as rich as yours, what is one of the biggest lessons that you have learned?
Ooh, I still am learning lessons, believe it or not. Like it's one of those things where we talk a lot about my work for community, and that is super important to me. But I remember when dear friend of mine who's going to be watching this or listening to this and saying, "Yeah, I did say that," who told me that I still need to prioritize myself, right? That she said, this is great. Because it was an opportunity that I had that I was not going to take. And she said, "Why are you being a martyr?" She said, take the opportunities. So self-care is a big lesson. I'm still working on that. That is an ongoing thing. Still understanding that I do deserve all the things. I have another girlfriend that when I showed her the house that I'm in, it's a little pricey, had an opportunity to get it. It is a lease. It is a lease. So shout out to because I know my landlords are going to be listening to this too, and they are a blessing to me. But when she saw that bathroom, she said, you better rent that house. So know that if you can afford it, treat yourself. Same thing with my mom. I told you my mom cleaned houses. And I
Yeah.
remember my mother-in-law, when shortly after I got married, said that I need to get a cleaning lady. And I'm like, my mom was the cleaning lady. I should be able to clean my house. My mom was like, you can afford it. You better get yourself a cleaning. So treat yourself, right? Like
Yeah.
it's work and career should not be all consuming. The final lesson I will say about that, I will say, is my own daughter. My elder daughter, Imani, she put on her social media. Now I can only see one profile, but that's another story. But she put on her public profile that I could see. She said, I'm not about this grind life. I should be on a yacht. I should be doing this. These are all things that, by the way, she has done because of my friends. But she's like, this is how I want to live my life. And she was like, I need the soft life. And so the lesson is constantly, she also said to me recently, because I remember we were doing something around Thanksgiving and I said, oh, I feel like I should be, doing cleaning up or organizing my week for next week. She said, Mommy, you have to be productive all the time. And so those
Mm.
are those lessons about take a break because I'm pretty sure that most of the people that follow you, TaNeshia, are doing so because they're constantly in a space of growth, right?
Mhm.
But what they should also know is that it's okay to rest. It's okay to rest. So that's
That's
the
a word. That's a word for me for sure, because I work pretty much 7 days a week. And, yeah, it's funny. I actually posted today from Amber in her interview, Amber Lawson,
Mhm.
beautiful soul.
Love
And
Amber.
she said, if you do not take care of you, nothing else will work. You have to prioritize you. And I was like, that's a word. That's important. And I even been thinking the last like 24 hours, like, I really want to be a nomad. Like, that's really my dream is to just travel the world, get up and go and just be. I don't know. Sometimes I wish I could be that, and other things are like, we got things to do. We have things to build. How do we work on this legacy?
I hear you, but I'm gonna tell you another lesson. So this is 2 jobs ago, 2 or 3 jobs ago, I got it was a nonprofit. I was the executive director, and I was sent to Minneapolis for a conference and did the conference. And I remember thinking, oh man, I would love to go see Prince's estate, Prince, right? But I was
Yeah.
like, no, 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 I can't. I don't have time. I got to go to all these things. Fast forward, come back. Found out that the woman at the foundation who paid for us to go out, she was like, "Oh, no, I took time over to go over to his." So do those side quests, right? Like, take the time when you're traveling for work. I traveled to Denver for work, but I went to look at those mountains. I said, "I'm not gonna be here and not
Mhm.
go see." So do the things. Don't think that you constantly have to be good and do work. Take time for yourself, even when you're on a work trip.
I I know you said that you're working on giving time to yourself, but what is what but how are you going to, I guess, use that to lead forward in your
Man,
journey?
that is such a great question. Again, I really actually don't have the answer for that today. Like I am still, it is, we're recording this a week that is the time that a lot of people are off, but yet I'm still working because,
Yeah. Yeah,
I'm
same
doing that.
here.
I know we're working together. We're working together.
Right. Yeah.
Um, but I think 2026, that is, starting now, that is something that I'm still thinking about. Like, how do I lead? And I will tell you, one of the things that got me to start doing this better was during the pandemic. So during the pandemic, I was CEO of Newark Symphony Hall, and what I found was that my staff were working more hours when we were remote. And that was when I decided I needed to model better. So that means only sending emails during 9 to 5 so that they understand that they can take the time to break. And even on the boards that I'm on, I still also, 'cause I'm typically an officer, I'm trying to model for the younger professionals that are looking up to me. Like, a lot of getting me to do the things that I think I should do is now motivated by, again, my sense of community and modeling, but it's still getting me to do the right thing. So no matter
Mhm.
how I get to it, I'm getting to it. But a lot of it is it's about, and from just scheduling it is that
Mhm.
I am probably overscheduled. So that is
Yeah.
something that I'm also working on as well.
Amongst your busy schedule and everything that you've done, what is a project that is your passion project that was closest to your heart?
So not necessarily project, because I don't want to call people projects, right? But I remember I was being nominated for an award in New Jersey, which I got. And they asked me the similar question, which was like, what were you most proud of? And I was most proud of like the individuals that I had assisted during the course of my career. There's one that I'm super proud of. Well, there's several that I'm super proud of. Um, but I think if I were to pick one, it was someone who came on as my assistant. She grew up, uh, she similar hardscrabble, sort of life. Um, um, had all the things that we associate, whether it's family incarceration, et cetera. And I remember she came on to be my assistant with the deal we made is that she was going to do that for a year, and then she was going to apply to grad school. And she told me that when she was still taking classes, even though she was working for me, still taking part-time grad school classes. And she said, no, no, no. My professors told me that any of these schools, if I got into it, it was because I was Black. And I was so upset. I was so upset. I said, even if that's true, which I don't think is true, because she
Right.
graduated from Rutgers University in New Jersey with a top
Mhm.
GPA. I said, even if that's true, I said, they can't do the work for you. You still have to do the work. And she had missed the deadlines, and I was so upset. And I remember I was near tears, and she talked about how she said she couldn't believe that I was near tears. And I called other people, and so the next year, I was in Jamaica writing that letter of recommendation for the various scholarships that she got. She got a full ride to grad school.
Yes.
And I remember, and now she is a top program officer, one of the biggest foundations in the country, helping give out millions and millions and probably hundreds of millions of dollars by now. But that's just one example. I have several other women, primarily Black women, that have come into, whether it was entertainment or arts or real estate, that were told that there was no path for them, right? Because they
Yeah.
were Black, because they were women, because they were single mothers, all of those things. And so I'm probably most proud of being able to be the person that just opened the door, because they still got to do the work.
Absolutely. For those people who believe in your vision, how can they support you?
Ooh, so I'm on LinkedIn. You can follow me on LinkedIn. You can follow me on Instagram. Those are probably the only two places that I'm really active. I do answer DMs. I am always willing to connect with folks. And I'll tell you, this is how, in this coming February, I will be speaking at a major commercial real estate company as their Black History Month speaker. But I also am going to be the entrepreneur in residence for the Performing Arts School at the University of Michigan at Ann Arbor. And it all started with a DM. So I am always open to connect.
Awesome. Is there an ask that you have from the community?
The ask that I have for the community is to keep us close and to keep supporting, I'm going to say very specifically, Project REAP. Programs that are designed like ours to provide access to, there's a woman out in California. She didn't just say underrepresented, because we are, but I say underestimated. And I told her I will
Mm.
always use that now, for the underestimated are under attack. And so it's important. And if you got a little coin, because we are doing a campaign right now called Reap Together, contribute those coins, to keep our work going. And Tanisha,
Awesome.
I just want to thank you, and I want to encourage you to stay in your purpose, whether it is doing this podcast, whether it is as an entrepreneur. You are an important component to what we have here at the community. And thank you for having me and for making Tanisha's look good.
Hey, you're going to have to make me cry a little bit. Thank you so much. And I really appreciate you being here.